So yeah,
Right?
it
Yeah.
just did it 20 seconds. It just pops up like we've been live for 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's like once you actually press the button and then it looks like it's going to take a while, but it's actually not.
Mm-hmm.
But anywho, way to start off our uh, live discussion today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to DoubleBookedCo's book club discussion of The Namesake.
Hello.
I hate to say the name incorrectly, so that's why I skipped over it. But I know that Laura can pronounce it correctly.
Oh,
So,
Jhumpa
yes,
Lahiri. Yeah.
yes, I'm not even going to attempt it because I hate getting people's names wrong. Kind of like how Allie had mentioned in her Voxer message about the YouTuber she follows that she doesn't use her real name because she doesn't want
Mm-hmm.
people to um, say it incorrectly, which I thought was an interesting story that she told us. But anywho, yeah, so we're going to be discussing the namesake today. Uh, that is May's book pick that Laura picked for her birthday month. So
Mm-hmm.
before we get into that, wanted to say again, happy birthday, Laura. Did you have a nice
Thanks.
day? Was it a good day for you?
Yeah, it was pretty good. My mom came over and ordered my favorite salad, and they kind of screwed up the delivery, so I ended up with two salads each. Which so all I had was salad all day long. Not bad. And then cake in the afternoon. We watched Wild Bill, a British mystery series with Rob Lowe. We watched the first half of that, and then watched some Midsummer. We took a nap. It was terribly exciting. And then she left, and yeah, I just kind of laid around and watched TV. Didn't do anything. It was nice.
Sounds like a great day.
Yeah, it's pretty glamorous. That's how I like to roll.
Yeah. I love me some Midsummer. I've taken a break from
Mm-hmm.
Midsummer because I think I've come up to the point where I started rewatching it and then I
Mm-hmm.
stopped rewatching it and bounced to the beginning. But I'll probably rewatch that show at least 3 or 4 times before I die.
I'm
So
sure you will.
yeah, but I,
I know.
I
I
need to
just
take a
got.
break now.
Where am I? I just got like an episode past where Cully gets married.
Oh,
So
sure.
I haven't. This is my first rewatch in probably, I don't know, 7 years or something. So
Mhm.
I don't really remember a lot of what happens. But I know he's doesn't he retire at the end of this season? Maybe
He does, and I don't know if because I'm watching that on
11.
IMDb TV,
Yeah.
which has now changed its like name to Freebie. I don't know.
Hmm.
Anywho, and I'm pretty sure it is missing episodes because
It has to be.
I swear that there is an episode where Barnaby literally says that he's retiring and he
Mm-hmm.
like looks over to the other Barnaby and like exchanges a like moment or something and then that's the last episode. But on IMDb TV, it's like it shows the last episode and like they're just all there for like his birthday. And then it's the next season. And I'm like, they don't even like say like he's gone. He's just gone. It was
Weird.
really weird. So I'm like, they have got to be missing episodes.
I think
It's
they are
got
because when you've been watching them when you were watching a lot more when you were still pregnant and you were like, oh, it's been all day and I got through like a whole season or something, and I'm like, there's 8 seasons or 8 shows in this season, and you got through all of them in like a 5-hour period. So they
yeah, I
must
don't know.
miss like a few from every. It have to
It's
be because I'm
got
like,
to. It's got to.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mm.
Because, yeah, some seasons would have like 4 episodes, and some would have like 7 or 8. I think it depends on what they have access to. Because
Mm.
later, then it seems like they're all there because there's a ton of
Yeah.
episodes. But I don't know. Anywho, we're way getting off track because I could talk about British TV all day long.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
I'm
let's
glad
talk
to
about
hear.
that instead of the namesake today.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear you had a nice birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Always fun for that. It looks like Allie is here since she's in a different time zone, which is
Hello,
very nice.
Allie. Good
I'm glad
evening
to
to
hear that
you.
you made it safely to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love the charity shop photo with all
I
the
know.
attachments. I should start doing that, taking pictures of like the most common books that I see at
Mm-hmm.
thrift stores because there's a couple that I'm always like, there's a lot of this one.
Yeah.
Like the red tent. There are
Yeah.
so many at the thrift store. Like every time I go, there is that book. Obviously, Da Vinci Code is another one. But yeah, that's always fun to see. Like, what's the most common book like stuck here? The Twilight books are always really popular as well. Looks like Angela is here as well.
Hello,
Welcome,
Angela.
and so before we kind of get into our discussion today, just a reminder for everyone for June, we have Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close for the pick. So if you're going to be joining us in June for our book club discussion and productivity sprints, we will be reading this book by Jonathan Safran. So the reading sprints will be on the 5th of June at 4:30. You don't necessarily have to read this book during those sprints. You can do whatever you'd like during the reading sprints. But Laura and I usually try to start the book pick. Remember that this book is in mixed media, so you'll see different forms inside. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely join us for that. But that'll be June's read. And then on that June 5th new product release, that is when we will share what July's book will be. July being my birthday month, it'll just be a selection. We won't have any voting for July. So you'll just find out which book we're going to be reading. Which was a surprise to me when I found out what it was. I was like, really? That's the one I picked? Because I totally thought I picked a different book. And I was like so excited to read it. And then Laura, you told me what it was, and I was like, that's what I picked. Whatever. So it's all good. Anywho. Okay. It looks like Angela's gonna be joining us as well.
How was the movie?
Yep. Speaking of which, I didn't include this in our questions, but we could discuss it briefly right now. With the Namesake having a motion picture attached to it, has anyone seen the Namesake? Laura, did you end up watching it at all before today's discussion?
No, I just finished a little while ago, quite frankly. But it is on Prime. I did.
Oh, it is on Prime. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about watching it just to kind of see what they would do with an adaptation, just because of my feelings of it as being a book. And like I was telling you before we went live, my friend Beth Ann had visited me, and she watches a lot of movies. She's a big movie buff. And I had asked her if she saw this movie, and she's like, yes, but I don't remember anything about it. So I was like, oh, that's good. Kind of reminds me of how I'll probably remember the book is, yes, I read it, and no, I couldn't tell you anything about it. Which is okay. I mean, there are books that are like that.
Yep.
But let's jump into talking about the book and get in to that. So obviously, we always love starting our discussions with our ratings. So as far as your rating of the book, 1 out of 5, 5 being amazing. So we're thinking about like how Goodreads does it, and you can go by halves or quarters or whatever. What would be your rating of the book? And remember, everyone, when we're asking questions, you in the comments are also included. So feel free to pop your ratings in there as well. We'd love to find out what you think. If you're watching this in replay, please comment below, #replay. We always love to find out what everyone is thinking, even if you couldn't be here live. So, Laura, tell me, what do you think you're going to rate this book?
I think probably 3.5, because, like you said, not a ton happens. It's just a family story. But she's such a great writer, and I love her language. And the writing is what bumps it up that half of a star. Otherwise, it would have been just a 3, not a 4, because I didn't love it. And I don't know if I'll ever reread this again. I might, but yeah, 3.5. What do you think?
You know, I haven't done anything with my like content creativity, anything like that. But right now, like just
enjoyment,
just thinking about my enjoyment piece, I think I would just give it a 2. Like I think it's just okay. And I agree with you in the sense that it's just a story. There's nothing that really thrills me about the book. I do agree that the writing style is great. It was really easy to read as far as like the approachability of the language. I think that there are a lot of thoughts and topics in here that speak really well to a reader. You really do get a good sense of, family and the theme of naming and namesakes. But as far as just reading it, like I said before, like to read it, I don't know that I'm going to remember most of what's in here. It was nice, but I wouldn't say that it's something that, threw me for like oh my gosh, I would totally recommend this book to anyone who likes, like it's a nice story. That's how I kind of felt about it. Let's see, it looks like Angela gave it a 4-star rating. And I think it's interesting because I read it in audio. Like I started reading it and I just I kept like falling asleep. As you can tell, my like eyelids are like the lowest they've ever been. I can't even keep my eyes open. So I had to change over to audio because of just my situation right now. Right. So maybe that had something to do with my enjoyment as well. But even that being said, I feel like I liked it more once I switched to audio than when I was just reading it by myself. So, yeah.
Interesting.
I don't think I'll keep it though either. I think I'll end up.
I didn't think you would.
Yeah, I'll probably unhaul it.
Yeah. I'm going to keep mine just because I'm going to keep reading the rest of her books that I own. I think I just have 2 more. And then her next one is a collection of short stories, which is what her first book was. This is her first novel. So I'll keep going and I'll reassess at that point. If I like all of her writing and like all of her work, I'll keep it just because I already own it, just to kind of complete things. But if, as it goes, I'm like, nah, I don't really care. I'll just keep the ones I really like and let this one go.
Yeah.
So it's a keep just because,
Yeah.
It's here.
I feel like I've never unhauled books before BookTube, but now I feel like I'm unhauling books because I'm like, why am I keeping this? I only spent 99 cents on it, and like, why am I keeping it? I'm not going to read it again. But there are books that, even if it was a 2-star, I like want to keep it because it's a classic or it's part of a series that I have. So I totally get where you're coming from with how, you keep it for those reasons of keeping the collection. So I'm glad that I have that now where I don't feel like I'm keeping, like I'm hoarding books or something.
You do hit a saturation point, at least mentally, with the books you have in your house. At some point you're like, these things have to go. Some of these things have to go. Like, it's just too much. Or, like, I'll never read this again. Why am I keeping this? Like, this is 1.5 inches of shelf space I could use for something else. So, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Looks like Allie is in the 3 to 3.5. So you two are similar in your ratings. And
that's what I have next.
Oh,
that one, 5 stars. Angela, have you read Interpreter of Maladies? Or Allie or anyone else who's here? I don't know who's here. And this is your first one by her, right, Dani? Your first book
Yes.
With her? Okay.
Yes.
I think Allie, you mentioned reading her newest one. Wild whatever.
Yep.
Whereabouts? I can see the cover in my head now. But
yeah, she said that it was written in Italian and then she translated to English. So I thought that was interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So thank you, Allie, for presenting the group with really interesting findings. For those of you who are not part of our Voxer group, and if you want to be part of the Voxer group, you just have to let us know. We'll add you. No worries. You can be added at any time. But Allie had made a discovery with her latest reading of this author's work, where the author had recently learned Italian and then wrote her newest book in that language, and then translated it into English, which is really interesting. I mean, I've never heard of an author doing that, like learning a language so soon thereafter writing something and then translating it again. So that's quite a feat. I mean, it takes a very special person to be able to do that. So,
and she's translated books from Italian for other authors as well into English.
nice.
Like Domenico Starnone, she's translated a few of his, and oh god, more than it. But anyways, there's a few Italian authors that she has translated then as well into English. So not only did she learn this language in her like 30s or 40s, I think, but then wrote a book in Italian, translates, and then translated her own book back into English again.
Crazy.
I know. And she's really pretty too. Not that looks matter, but this is her. I mean, she's really pretty.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the picture that's on the back of my book, every time I look at it, I think she's in a towel. Yeah. I don't know why.
It kind of,
I'm like, what if she?
A little fuzzy,
oh, she's in a towel, and I'm like, oh no, she's not. She's just sitting weird. Anywho, Angela doesn't keep any of her books.
Oh,
what? Wow. That's so crazy to me. Sometimes when I see other booktubers, like, and I think it's more like European booktubers, because of the space difference, they have like one little half shelf.
Yeah.
And that's what they keep all their books on. And I'm just like,
yeah.
I haven't had a little half shelf. Like, in college, we had one shelf on each side of the dorm room for each student. And that wasn't even enough space for the books that I had at that time. Not textbooks, but all of the books that I had brought from home and then continued to purchase while I was in college. Like, why I had all these random books in my college dorm room, I do not know.
I did too.
I went to other people's rooms, and they would have like their food on those shelves, or like their makeup on those shelves, and I'm like, those are bookshelves, right? And they're like, what? And I'm like, those are for books. And they're like, no, I put all my food there. I put all this. I'm like, no, those are for books.
We had 2 shelves in my dorm room. And one of them was like DVDs and VHSs, because I'm 1,000. It was like, we would stack them all up. And then the other one was books, but it was like Jenga for me to get everything on there. And this was before I became an English major too. Like you said, it just was stuff that I brought from home. I was like, I have like 2 feet of shelf space. Cool. All right. Let's see how high we can topple this.
See, and I was the nerd too. Target used to sell these X-Men figurines that you would like put together with glue, and then they'd be on top of these little crates. And I was collecting them all, so I would
like send them at your house
together, and then I would put them on the shelf.
Yeah.
And then I had this 5-frame. You know how like they would give them to dads or whatever, and it had like your school picture in it.
Yeah.
Well, I had one of those, and it had like 5 frames, and I had like X-Men like baseball cards.
Yeah.
In each of the things. So it was like Rogue and Gambit and Professor X and like Wolverine, and then one other, I think it was Nightcrawler. And then I had that up on there. And I'm like, I find some of this stuff in my attic. Like, if you go through my old videos on Spinelli Speaks, it's like, I think it's like shit I found in my attic. And literally, I still have all this crap that, like, I collected all these weird things. Like, I have Pez, like Batman Pez dispensers, Tigger Pez dispensers. And
I had a lot of Winnie the Pooh stuff.
Oh, yeah. So, anyways, we're talking about books, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, Angela said so far she hasn't seen any that do not keep most of their books. Yeah, they're few and far between, that's for sure.
Yeah. Where are oh, nice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it's nice to see that they have that new category. I'm interested to see how that plays out this year. It seems like a good one to add to the judging. So nice. And then yeah. Oh my gosh. Holy mole, 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 mole. That's crazy. Good for you, girlfriend.
It's impressive. I'm
It is
envious.
super impressive. Like I would never like if I had to like downsize to like one little shelf, there's no
Oh,
way. There's no way I'd be able to do it.
I don't know how I could. I mean,
No, you would just have to you would just have to not you would literally just have to blind pick like 10 books
seriously,
and throw
just
everything
like
else out.
unhaul all of my TBR, all of
Mhm.
it, and just keep like the sentimental ones or something. Because
Yeah.
yeah, wow.
Yeah. So 20 minutes in, let's get into our first question.
Yeah.
Okay. So opening scene and scenes throughout the novel, they involve food and food memories. Are there any food memories or food that bring you closer to home or to your own heritage? And this question really specifically is for Mary, considering every time we get into our reading sprints, somehow, some way, we end up talking about food for 20 minutes. So I thought the best thing to start our discussion today with was
Smart.
food. So let's talk about food. um, I think what I liked about the first image, the how she was kind of making this mixture. I was thinking like Chex Mix in my head.
Yeah, me too.
That's what I was thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's brought up later again
Mm-hmm.
uh in a later chapter, so it's like a reminiscent, like it's a common thing, constantly make it. And I really thought about Chex Mix, and
Mm-hmm.
my mom always makes Chex Mix during the holidays. um so that's what I was thinking of. But as far as any other food memories, um I don't really, when I think about food, like I eat a lot of food. I really like food. I like new food. Um, the food memories that I have that like bring me home are more like baking, like at
Mm-hmm.
holidays when you have like for Christmas you bake a lot of cookies, or we bake a lot of cookies. I think about like Thanksgivings or 4th of July's, or anything where you're going somewhere and you like make something for the event. Like those are the
Mm-hmm.
kind of memories I have. I don't so much have any memories that bring me back to like my heritage at all, like meaning like, okay, so I'm German Irish, because I didn't really have a lot of older relatives that kind of brought those traditions down.
Mm-hmm.
I more or less am, you know, just food as in hospitality, I guess is the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do enjoy eating. So I have a lot of food memories that are just me eating food. And those are always good as well. What about you,
Mm-hmm.
Laura?
Yeah, I mean, I have a small family. I'm the only child and the youngest in the extended family as well. So it was always around adults. I mean, so it was always me watching people make stuff. And it was fairly basic food. I mean, nothing outlandish, never anything fancy. I think I've had steak like 3 times in my life. We just didn't really, it was always, well, we were always poor too. Like, so it was pork chops browned in onions and mashed potatoes with a little bit of gravy and like a vegetable on the side, or um, stuff like that. I do remember my my mom still makes this at least once a year. Um, okay, so my grandmother grew up as one of several kids. My grandmother's mother, my great grandmother, married I think 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times. Like she just, I won't tell you what my mom says about her, but anyways, it's inappropriate. Um, but she would have left anyways. Um, so she was always kind of like milling around and stuff. They grew up in the middle of nowhere and didn't have a lot of money. And she befriended this woman named Elizabeth, who is German. Like she kept her German accent her entire life. She died in her 90s, maybe I think 10, 12 years ago she died, and she sounded like she just arrived from Germany still. So my grandmother was born in like the 1910s, and um, she befriended Elizabeth, who had just married a man who was Welsh, and they lived like a mile away. So my grandmother would walk over and visit with her. They were like 10 years apart in age or something. And Elizabeth would make this German apple cake. And it has this like shortbread kind of a crust almost. So it's a fairly hard, that's lack of a better term, dense, toothy, whatever, with a nice apple topping and a streusel kind of topping that you bake together. And that for me is something that's really like nothing else tastes like that because of that crust. It's an unusual combination. And that's just Elizabeth's apple cake. That's what we call it because it's just what she used to make at home. So it's a very, very German recipe. We are German. Both my mom and dad's side are German. So that's the thing. I think that is really the most like this thing. But then if my mom stops making it, I never make it. It's just going to cease to exist. No one else will ever make it. So it's not quite the same,
Yep. That makes me think of the scene when Gogol was in the cemetery and he was getting the names, etching,
doing the rubbings,
like shading the names on the paper, and he had made a comment about how some of the names, because they're not used again, they just disappear. They just cease to exist. So the fact that you said that just made me think of that. I love food. That does sound like a really good cake, though. Apple streusel.
I'll make it for you sometime.
Oh, I love cake. Well, not like cake. I like other cake.
Yeah,
like
it's not a cake. It's more like a pie. But I don't know why it's cake. It's not. It's more like a pie. I don't know.
Well, it looks
Anyways,
like
whatever.
Angela. We have
lefse.
Lefse, which what is that?
I love lefse.
Cookies. Sweet
Our grandpa used to make lefse. It's so good.
Can you describe it?
Yeah, it's like a thin potato pancake, but it's not cooked. So it's like a potato tortilla, more like.
Oh.
And then we always just ate it warm with butter, and you kind of roll it up and eat it. Oh my God. It's seriously, my mouth is watering. It's so good.
Oh, wow. Then
it's
it looks
plain,
like,
but it's good.
Yeah.
Oh.
My grandparents were from Norway, so lots of food memories, even lutefisk.
How the heck did you eat lutefisk? I could never do it.
Oh, what is that?
It's like a jellied kind of a fish sort of a thing.
Well, nope. Stop talking.
I know.
I have had pickled herring, which does not look tasty.
Right.
It looks disgusting. But dang, you put that on a cracker? That is good. I went to this one supper club with a person I should not have dated. But anyways, we were up north. We went to this one supper club, and they brought this like relish tray, and it had like radishes, these pickled herring, olives, all these different things. And I was eating the crap out of those pickled herring. I was like, these are so freaking good. And I've not eaten them anywhere since then. But those were so, I can't believe I ate them. They were so good. Allie says, food was in my basic in my house growing up.
Sure.
But vivid memories going to Paterno Castle. Oh, for roast. Yep. That is a very UK thing.
Yep.
Very, very much so. Yeah. And I don't know why they say that, like, England doesn't have good food, like, just as a food itself. I know they've gotten a lot of influences from, like, India and other people who have come and now incorporated their own food into the country. But, like, I loved all the food everywhere. And roasts are great. Yeah, I loved everything over there to eat. So I don't know anybody talking about. I loved it all. Looks like Angela put sugar on hers too.
Yes. That's good too.
There were generations. Warriors wasted nothing.
I've never had Yorkshire pudding or like a traditional Sunday roast at all.
Oh.
See, whenever I get over there, when I'm like 90, I intend to have that someplace.
Yeah. We used to always have roast when we were kids. I mean, meat is so expensive. When we were kids, my mom would always buy meat on sale. And then so we'd have roast. So we'd have the roast with carrots and onions and potatoes, and it would just go in the oven, and then that's what we would eat. And because there was four of us, four kids, there were no leftovers. I mean,
Right.
it was just all that. But it was nice because it was something that my mom could put in a big roasting pan, and then when I get home I would just pop it in the oven. So yeah, I used to love roast. And then you'd make like the Grand's biscuits to go with it, and then you just like, it's all in one. And now people put it in like crock pots and stuff. It doesn't taste the same. You have to, with the onion soup mix, you would just like pop it on top. Yep. There's a food memory.
Yeah.
Did not like it.
Yeah. It just looks unappetizing, you know? Yeah.
Okay.
I love on the smell or anything else.
Northern tradition from the Southern. Okay, cool. Well, I could sit and talk about food all day, but let's move on.
I know. I was going to say, let's just do that.
I love food so much. Seriously, like, anytime like we have something that we're like planning, like, oh, we should do something, it's food. Something food related. Last year for our anniversary, there's like this restaurant week in our town, and that's what we did. We just went to some of the restaurants and got good food, and it was so good. And that's what we're going to do again this year, I'm hoping, because it's so good. So the next question here, as it states in the title, we have a novel that reflects on a namesake. So Gogol struggles with his name and even changes it. So let's discuss the significance of names, naming, and pet names, and maybe any other names that we feel are significant to the story. Where do we want to kind of start on this question, Laura?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think first, it was very interesting, the idea of waiting for the grandmother to provide them with a name for the child. I found that really like anxiety, like felt very full of anxiety, like that they're waiting for this name. Because me just having a child, you have to turn in that birth certificate stuff before you're discharged. So like, you have to have a name when you go to the hospital. So even for myself, like, we literally solidified our daughter's middle name on the way to the hospital. So I found that interesting that they were waiting for a name from a grandmother who was living in a different country in a time where you had to wait for letters.
Yeah, that took weeks.
Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting, not only for like the whole idea, but even thinking that you yourself would not name your own child, that you would get it from, a different generation. I thought that was interesting. For that to happen.
My grandmother named me. My mom and dad didn't name me. My grandmother named me.
Wow.
First time at all. So, yeah.
Wow. See, no, there's no way. I would be so annoyed. Like, as a mother, like, I feel like that's my responsibility.
Yeah.
Which is something we said too, like the act of naming. I think in one of the conversations that they had at a dinner party, is someone had made the comment that everyone should be able to name themselves when they turn 18 or something. And I thought about that idea, and I was like, no, like, so what? You would just go by.
I would have picked a really different name. Yeah.
Like, for 18 years. And we know that this has backfired. I know I've heard like where there's some parents who think this way and have let their children at a certain age pick their name. And it's like, Sparkles Barbie, or, like
Right.
something silly. And I think too, the process of naming, I mean, you're legit naming another human being. And it almost gives this sense of ownership of you own that person's identity almost. Because names really hold a lot in the sense of identity, which I think we see here with Gogol, especially in comparison to his namesake. So the act of naming is so intimate, and I think telling of the person too, depending on where it comes from, like if that's even a significant piece. I mean, when I think about my own name, and whether or not it's based on Danielle Steele, which I grew up thinking that that's how I was named by the author. But I don't know. When I asked my mom, she says no, but I swear she said at some point that it was. But then also my middle name, I have my grandmother's first name as my middle name. And I remember growing up hating that. Like at the time, I didn't have very good feelings towards my grandmother. I thought she was mean or whatever, and which has changed now. Like obviously as a kid you have a different perspective, and now I don't mind my middle name at all, but I used to hate my middle name. And when people would ask me what it was, I'd be like, I'm not telling you. Because I just hated it. And now I mean it's my middle name. It is what it is. I don't dislike it. I don't, it's my name. And even my first name, I don't even go by my full first name. I go by Dani.
Right.
And I feel weird when people say Danielle, which really only people that knew me before I had the nickname Dani, or pet name Dani, however you want to say it. They called it pet names in here. It's so weird to hear Danielle. Like that's not my name. My name's Dani. It just, and when I see other people with the same name, Danielle, it seems like it's more their name than it is my name. I don't know. And then you get that too, where people are like, "You ever anyone tell you look like an Allison?" Or like something like that,
Yeah.
It's all very interesting names. Names. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it does mean a lot. And my mom has always said, and she still says, that she's not good at naming anything, like pets, anything. She's like, I never can think of a good thing. I don't know what to do. Everything sounds stupid. I'm not creative. That's my mom's own thing. But I disagree with her, but that's what she believes about herself. So, okay. So that's when my grandmother named me. Like, she's like, Mom, what? I don't know what to do with this baby, if she's a girl or a boy. And she just said, Laura Brooke, there we go. And then that was it. And I was like, okay, yeah, that fit. She said, you came out and it fit you. She's like, you look like you're Chinese, but it just fits you. And I think like my dad used to call me Peanut, and like no one will ever call me that again because he's gone. And just the names of like my family members and stuff. Like my dad is gone. I'm never gonna talk to him again. I'll never hear my aunt and uncle talk to each other again. Like I'll never hear their names again. And that, I'm probably gonna start crying. I apologize. Like that's hard, and it's something that I didn't think I would necessarily mourn, or it wouldn't affect me the way that it really does. But losing my dad, who I was very close to, and then having all those losses and deaths in my family so close afterwards, it was like a 4-year onslaught of death and near dying constantly. I don't know how I got through it, but losing so much so quickly and in such a succession, it was like the hits just kept coming, and I didn't have time to absorb any kind of change. I couldn't get used to not saying Uncle Marvin anymore, because he was gone so quick. And then my aunt died a couple of months later, and then no more Aunt Sharon. And then, my uncle died, and a different uncle died. And it's like, they just kept happening. And now that I've had a little space to reflect, I think I'm never going to hear those names again. It means a lot to me. And also there's that generational thing, which is not necessarily about names, but you forget people's names. Like, we have tons of pictures in my house. I mean, Danny, you've been in my house. Like, I have a dark room in my basement. My grandfather was an amateur photographer. He was very good, but we have absolute boxes and boxes and shelves of like photographs of people. I don't know who these people are. They're my family. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's no one to ask anymore. There's my mom, but, and of course she knows stuff, and like her brain is sound, sound enough. So she remembers stuff, but like once she's gone, if I find a picture somewhere, I can never ask again. So it's just these generations lost. And talking about Gogol doing those rubbings and those etchings at the thing, I just thought, yeah, that's exactly right. The stuff is gone forever. Names really do matter, and nicknames count. And it's a difficult thing about life to, like, when you have to keep growing up and moving on, and you keep, like, suddenly you find yourself your parents' age, and then like your grandparents' age, you start edging that, you're like, oh my God, I'm this person now. It seems so impossible when you're young that something like that is going to happen or change to you, but it does. It just happens. Or like for me, you haven't had this yet, thank God, but like someone has a horrible health scare, your parent has a health scare, and like suddenly you have to make health decisions because they are incapable of doing it for yourself, and you're like, oh shit, okay, I'm the adult now, And then, I don't know, kind of got lost. I'm trying not to cry here. So it's a lot. It's really meaningful. It shouldn't be that meaningful, but it's hard. And not hearing names is difficult anymore. So like him never being called Gogol anymore by like random strangers because he's just Nickel now. I totally understood his sadness at the end of the book. I was like, oh, getting a little verklempt just reading about it. And it's hard. And then also a part that isn't mentioned in the book, but it made me think of the same thing too. It's not just that you'll forget who people are in photographs and that no one will call you a nickname anymore or whatever. It's not just that. It's that you lose whole chunks of memories that you have with people who are gone because there's no one to talk about them with anymore. And nobody cares. So I'm losing chunks of my dad because my mom and I don't talk about him that much because it's so painful for us still. But anyone who didn't know my parents didn't know my dad when he was alive. Like, you never met my dad. Like, I wouldn't talk about him with you because, not that you think this, but like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, you don't really care. You don't really know him. You can't relate to it and be like, oh my God, hilarious. That's so funny. Bill would totally do that or whatever. Like
a shared memory as opposed to just telling someone about it.
Yeah. That's a harder part, I think, almost than a name thing, is that all those shared experiences, stuff that you forget, is there's huge chunks of my life I've forgotten from stress and everything else. I just don't remember. I have to have photographic proof. I was at stuff with my friends because I just don't think that I was there because my brain just lost it and shut down. So it's like I aged really rapidly in that same time period. And there's lots of stuff I've forgotten that's just gone forever. So the memory attached to stuff and like hearing a name or like hearing a song you used to hear when you were a kid, or reminds you of something, or smelling a smell or anything, all that stuff is such a trigger. And when stuff changes and goes away, it's such a big loss. It seems so insignificant and so small, but it's really a big loss. I'm so sorry I'm crying so much.
No, you're fine.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. You're good.
And the only nickname I have, because nothing rhymes with Laura, is Hora. My friend Jenna nicknamed me that in college.
So fitting.
I know, because that's why, because I am so the opposite of a whore. Like, I'm so the opposite. So that's why it's funny. Like, here's Hora. Yeah. I know.
Good Lorda.
I know.
Oh, anywho, let's get some
action
out of the comment section so you can wipe your face.
Yeah.
It's all good. No worries. You can cry if you want to. It's your birthday. So Angela says, so her name's Angela, and new people always start calling her Angie. I don't answer to Angie. So freshman year of high school we moved, and I said on a new nickname of Andy, which at the time I had. That is so funny. So my sister-in-laws name is Andrea, which she goes by, but her nickname is Ange,
Yeah, that's right.
which doesn't make any sense to me
Yeah.
because her name is Andrea, which is a D, not a G, but her nickname is Ange. So she responds to both of them. So it's so funny. Angela
Yeah. Did the same
changes
thing.
to Andy. That's hilarious. Thing about having to name at the
Yeah.
time of birth is wild. Sister hadn't named her youngest two.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. You know, and I have heard of people that do that they wait. And I think where I've last read about it, I was reading a book by Louise Erdrich, one of her middle grade books. It was called The Birch Bark House. It's really good middle grade. It's about a little Native American girl, kind of growing up a little bit, talking about a lot of her surroundings. It's based way, I mean, I can't remember when, but I mean, early settlement um, after the colonies and everything. But in there, they were describing so her mother had another child, and don't they don't name the children until like I think it's there's specific people that can name the children, and until they have had a like spiritual awakening or something like that, something where the spirits have told them what the child's name will be, they don't, they're just named the baby or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like a pet name that is used for anyone of that age. And I thought that was so interesting because, and the way she described it was, the name signifies the kind of person that they are.
Right.
So her name was something with a beaver or something, or I don't even remember. But to name them without knowing them doesn't make any sense. So I found that really interesting. And my husband always says that too. Like and not that I'm trying to compare animals to human beings, but when we were getting our dog, I'm trying to like think of all these names, and he's like, "No, we can't until we see them. We need to see them, and then we'll know if it's the same name." And that's dumb. I want to name it now. He's like, "No, you got, because if you see it and it's like, well, that's not a Dwight." Well, thankfully, he definitely was a Dwight. But it's kind of the same for babies, and I've heard people say that too. Like we had a couple names picked out because once you see them, you kind of decide like, is that, you know, their name. So yeah, I totally get it. But we had to have a name before we left the hospital. Never heard of a girl using that nickname. Names are important. Never shorten a name someone gives me. Yeah.
I can get that. To that point too, Angela, I had a friend in college, Kathy, and she's 2 years younger than me, but we hung out a lot. We had a lot of like mutual friends and everything, and everyone called her Kathy. Absolutely everyone. And then after college, after she graduated, she said, I want to be professional. I want to go by my birth name. I want to go by Kathleen. And I was like, oh, okay. So she said, so please call me either Kathleen or Kat. And I was like, okay, fine. So of course I slipped up a couple of times because I've known her for like 6 years at that point as one name. So of course she was like, no, it's Kathleen. I was like, okay, yeah, okay, fine. Or Catherine, excuse me. And I don't talk to her anymore. But she only told me not to call her Kathy. And she's like, I'm telling everybody, everyone knows. But other people who still talk to her, I hear about it, still call her Kathy. And I'm like, that makes no sense. We all have the same stupid Wisconsin accent. It's not like I'm saying it some weird different way that like no one else does. I think that's very strange. Like if you want to change, that's fine. Give people a little bit of time to adjust. No problem. Got it. But why did you just say one person? Like, no, don't call me that anymore.
She started with you and then decided it was going to be too much work.
That's what it felt like. Because I was asking her on. I'm like, isn't that funny how we can't call her Kathy anymore? Like, I'm just sort of surprised. It just fits her so well. It like that shortened version just fits her. And my friends are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, because she's not going by Kathy anymore. They're like, no, yes, she is. What are you talking about? What? I'm like, No, she just told me, like, no, I haven't heard that. I'm like, weird.
So I was Danielle pretty much until high school, and I went to Dani because there were like 5 Danielles on the swim team, so we all had to pick a different name so that the coach could yell at us
Sure.
while we were in the pool. Because if you can't hear your name, you're not getting signals.
Right.
Because believe it or not, when you are swimming, you can hear people because your ear is out. So in order to hear your signals, if you need to do something, you need to hear your name. So I got Dani, which worked fine because, I mean, I am a Dani. So when I went to college, my name was Dani. Like, the only people that knew it was Danielle was whatever was on paperwork. Like, I was not Danielle to anybody. I was Dani to anyone that came in contact with me because my name had been Dani for at least 4 years. And there were certain people that would call me Danielle, and for some reason, it would just infuriate me because I'd be like, that's not my name. Like, why are you calling me? Like, why are you doing that? And it would make me so mad. And looking back, like, hindsight, like, why did I let it bother me? I should have just, because then what happens is the more angry you get about it, the more they do it to you. But I remember there was this one kid, and I was like, I'm going to punch this dude in the face. Like, he was incessant. Every time he saw me, hi, Danielle. Hi, Danielle. And I'd be like, dude, I don't know what your problem is, but I'm seriously going to deck you. He was so annoying. And I don't get why people do that. Like, and like we're saying here, names are important. Names have power. I think there's several books, like fantasy novels, where if you know someone's name, it's it. That's the power, So that's really interesting. We have some really great comments here. I don't want to miss any of them. My youngest son's name is Mackenzie. People always assumed he was a girl, though we called him Mac. A few years ago, he decided he will change his name legally, and now we call him Jay. Aw, see, that's sad too. As a parent, I wonder, and I'm not assuming that you feel any which way, Angela, but like, I was thinking myself for Gogol, like, to change his name, I wish they would have said more about how his parents felt about that, because they didn't mean for that to be his name, so I get that piece of it. But, like, for a child to be like, yeah, I really don't like the name you gave me, so I'm going to go ahead and change it. Like, oh, all that time you spent looking through baby books.
Yeah.
But I understand, the Mackenzie for the kind of gender ambiguous name there. I know my husband and I, we both have gender ambiguous names. So if you don't know that it's Dani as a girl, or his name can also go either way. It's just the spelling is different. I think it is hard for some people too, because then it's something that others can pick on you for, or have certain assumptions. But I think it's been more common lately for names to be gender neutral.
Yeah,
We
or
have
just
a lot
swapped.
of that, which I do like. I love, like, one of my baby names, which we didn't use, has always been Elliot for a girl, though. I've always really liked that name, but I've always thought of it for a girl, which it's traditionally a boy name. But I like the idea of the gender neutral, idea for names. Yeah. But yeah, Jay's a very good name too.
Yeah.
Allie has a lot of nicknames. She also hated her middle name. Yeah. I'm hoping maybe we got the answer ready, because I'd be interested in that, because I think for me, I'd be like, oh, I thought I did such a nice job of naming you. Aw. Yes, thank you, Laura. Always.
Just talking with friends.
Yeah. Okay, so she was okay with it. Helps that he plans to change his last name to mine. I
Too
took
bad
it
for
back
Dad's
after
family.
divorce. Aw, well, that's nice though.
Yeah.
That's nice. I know I have
Thanks.
friends who when they got married, because there's depending on who you are, sometimes you keep your last name, sometimes you hyphenate your last name, sometimes you just take your spouse's last name, depending on what your whatever your feelings are. But I have some friends, they actually they made their name, they combined them.
Oh
So
yeah.
it was Van Handel was my friend's name, my friend's last name, and then her husband's last name was Schmidt. So now they're the Van Schmidts.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was so cool. I was like,
That's
that's
nice. Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
that's kind of cool. The only thing that I get about that is like I watched the what is that? Find Your Roots or
Oh, I
whatever
love
that
those
show
shows.
is, which
Mm-hmm.
is so good. And I'm thinking like, how hard is it gonna be in 100 years when
Mm-hmm.
they're doing that show and like, oh, and here's a piece of your family tree where 16 of your members changed their names
Mm-hmm.
to this and this, so now there's these over here, but they are still of this tree. And yeah, it cracks me up how widened that
Mm-hmm.
has become. Okay. Oh, did I get
No,
the
I'm the
bugs?
same way too when I comment. I
Yeah,
really am. I type way too much.
no
Like,
worries.
how do I take some things out? Can I use an ampersand somewhere to try and smush
Yeah.
it in?
Especially if there's like a character count, so if you're trying to like
Mm-hmm.
make things
Yeah, jam
smaller.
it in there.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
watching this kid across the street is on a pogo stick,
Oh,
and his sister keeps getting too close to him.
I'm just
She's
waiting for a
so
head crack.
anyhow, yeah. Good job. In the book, let's talk about what's in the
Oh
book.
yeah, the book.
It's
Mm-hmm.
really sad when he told his parents about changing his name.
Yeah.
They're obviously against it, but didn't have the heart to fight the change. I the one thing I did appreciate about that is he did take the name that they had actually decided then for him.
Mm-hmm.
They did decide on the Nikhil,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I thought was really sweet that he decided to keep that name,
Yeah.
as opposed to like just picking a random name or a name like because I could see like with him, all the music he really likes. I could have seen him like pick John or
Mm-hmm.
Ringo or something,
Right.
like that. But for him to pick the name that his parents kind of originally decided was going to be his true name before
Mm-hmm.
the school kind of got in there, I thought that was sweet. But at the same time, I was like, oh boy, changing your
Yeah.
name. Um, yeah, and we'll kind of get to that in a little bit as well. Allie adds here, and his dad says something like, then just go ahead. Anything is possible in
Yeah.
America. Yeah. 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 Different generations, definitely
Mm-hmm.
different ideas of how things work. But okay. Let's see here. So that was the second question. So one's identity is often tied to their name. How does one's name influence their future? So we kind of talked about this already within
Mm-hmm.
the last question, and the couple of questions that come after this too is kind of tied into that same idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think what I meant by this question is sometimes when we are named for somebody else, like when we're named after someone. So,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, if my first name um, really is for Danielle Steele. Like, should I live up to the fact that she's a prolific author and, all that kind of thing? Or
Mm-hmm.
when we see people named after their relatives, you know, do they have to live up to who that person was? Um, so when we think about this question in that sense, how do we feel like names potentially impact futures, or don't they?
Yeah. No, I think they do. I mean, I think it all depends on obviously who you're named after and what they were like as a person. Not only what you hear about them, like if you were named after, like you're named for your grandma. Let's say her name was Stephanie. So if your name is Stephanie, you're like little like Stephanie Jr. or whatever, you'll hear about your grandmother being talked about your whole life and what adults think about her contemporaries, her kids, your parents, whatever. But then you'll have your own memories of what Stephanie was like. And your own memory of that person, I think, would override almost anything else in a totally subconscious level over what anyone else says about her. So you'd still feel like, oh, I'm saddled with this and she was such an alcoholic or whatever it was. You'd feel like, God, I have to be so careful. Or it'd be a little depressing, maybe, I would assume, could really bum you out in a weird way, and that would be the thing that would linger. Even if someone was talking about something, or you had a really great meal, you have this horrible aftertaste of like alcoholism, not great. So yeah, I think it could totally be a good or bad, depending on ultimately what you think about that person.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, and I think exactly what you said about other people's perceptions, like, because I think like for our daughter, we did name her after a grandmother of hers who is deceased. So like you said, she may get stories of that person and the love that people had for that person. And I hope as a mother, by naming her that I don't add that chip, on her shoulder of what a great person grandma was that she never met, but everyone loved her so much. And now that's my name. And it's not directly her name. So it's a variation, but anywho, it's still, she is named after her. So yeah, I think about that. Like, did I set something off, that potentially could be significant in the future, good or bad,
Yeah.
I think in this next, let me grab this here. And Allie says,
yeah,
I was like, when someone says, oh yes, go, that hadn't even occurred to me. Yeah. And I think they said that because they said that it would be easy for Americans to just call him Nick. But yeah, and then for it to be an Indian family naming their child after a Russian author, and for that Russian author, what I found really interesting was when Gogol was in high school and he was learning about Gogol's real life, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy had a terrible life.
Yeah.
Like, he was like depressed. When they described like the leeches, and like I was like, oh my gosh, did his dad not like look into any of this stuff? Like, so yes, he has great writing, but like, OMG.
Well, there's no way to look that up earlier,
I guess.
The 60s, you'd have to, he was living in India, reading a Russian author. How many, I don't know this, like how many Indian encyclopedias were around that covered a full life of a Russian author that wouldn't be sanitized somehow, Like how would he have known? Because I just know, all I knew about Gogol, as I've never read him, is he had a really terrible life and he's Russian. That's him. Yes. So when I heard this kid's name, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Dang. But yeah, reading, it's like, wow.
Well,
I'd be
and
embarrassed too.
I don't know for me, because I'm a dork, but as soon as when I saw Gogol, and again, I have not read Gogol, the Russian author, but as soon as I read it in the book, I was like, Gollum? Like, that's immediately where my head goes, is Gollum?
You're not a big Lord of the Rings person either.
Gogol. Like, you're an idiot, Dani. Anyway. So yeah, when he was in that lesson, I was like, oh my gosh, this kid is like, I could just see him doing like the slow, like, stop talking. And then the teacher just randomly leaves to go have a smoke break. Like, where does that happen?
I think it happened to me once in middle school. I had one teacher who was a smoker, and they would just sort of stop and be like, I'll be back in 5. And then like just go outside for a quick smoke and come back.
That's so crazy. They get fired now for that.
I know. It's the 90s, man.
Yeah. So kind of continuing on with Gogol's name, when he finally finds out his origin, so
Mhm.
when his dad tells him the story about the train, you know, how is his like change of heart? Because he completely sees his name in a completely different light at that point.
Mhm.
How does that affect his? How is that important to his story, or how does that affect him? What is the significance of that, if there is any significance?
I think it's a hinge on how he lives the rest of his life and how he views himself and his family too. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a massive cliffhanger where you're like, oh my god, this is so big, but it's enough that it's a point that you'll never forget in your life. Like you see that this name that you felt has been hung on you, that is
Mm-hmm.
this horrible thing. No one knows how to spell it. No one knows what's like, it's not even Indian. It's just some stupid Russian author. He's hung with
Someone's
this name.
last name, not even their first name, so it's not
Right.
even a real name, is what he
Right.
says.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a real name. It's just some whatever. And then finding the importance of it, not only does he see that it does make a difference and it was important to his dad, but he sees his dad as a human person, like as
Mm-hmm.
his own adult. Like he is a human
Mm-hmm.
who has made mistakes and lived a life. And as a kid, you know it, but like there is that moment where everyone hits when they're a little kid, or like usually a teenager or something in college for the first time. You're like, oh wow, okay, so my parents are very fallible, or oh they super lived a life before me that had nothing to do with me and is not at all like the person they are now. So I think that that is really like one of the little like tipping points where it's like, yep, he's grown up now, he gets it. He's not going to talk and feel the same way about himself anymore, especially not to his dad.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think?
I was kind of annoyed with the amount of times or instances where he like had to know something.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't just accept something for what it was. He
Right.
had to know the origin of all of these things. And
Mm-hmm.
I recall, I think maybe two or three instances where he literally says, like, well, I wish I would have known that.
Yeah.
Or now that I'm shocked that I'm finding this out now.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I really felt like, but why did you need to know that? Why did you need to know this horrific, tragic story in order for you to understand the importance of your name? Not the
Right.
significance in the name itself, but the importance of why your family gave you that name. They
Right.
didn't just like go walking one day and saw it on a billboard and said, "Well, that will work." There is significance to the name regardless of
Mm-hmm.
if you know it or not. Um, and I think where I felt annoyed with him is when it happened again sometime later, and I can't remember the actual instance, but something happened where someone told him something,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, I wish I would have known that information." And you're like, "Well, but did you really need to know it?" I mean,
Yeah. It's sort of an immature teenage thing,
yeah, I felt
like,
like his
yeah.
his name really like, what's the word? Like, stifled him. Like
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, he was held back by his feelings that his name was just so awful. Um and then when he went and changed it, which is perfect, is his choice, his
Mm-hmm.
prerogative. But then in that scene that you had brought up when he was coming towards the end of the story and he finds that book that his father had given him and he reads the inscription for the
Mm-hmm.
first time,
I know.
um he's sad that no one will know his name. No one will call him that once
Mm-hmm.
his cousins are gone, once his aunties and uncles are gone. You know, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that. He was the reaper of
Mm-hmm.
his own name. And that was something that his father gave him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad. And for him to have lived so long with just not wanting to hear that name, and now at the end of the story, all he wants is to hear that name.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really sad.
Yeah.
I don't really care to hear Danielle. I hear it all the time. Plenty of people have that name.
I'll try not to make your cards out to Danielle anymore when I mail you stuff.
Oh yeah, you did that. That was so funny. I remember getting
like, I'll be formal and I'll write Danielle.
So Laura sends me a Mother's Day card, which was super sweet. Like, and it was funny because when I got it, I looked at it and I was like, I wonder who this is from.
Yeah.
No one calls me. I mean, family members, but I'm like, who's sending me a Happy Mother's Day card? And I look up in the return, I'm like, it's Laura. I'm like, why is Laura calling me Danielle? Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. I just asked my dad why they named me Alice, and he said he can't remember. But they probably picked it out of a book of names. No wonder I have an A name. They probably got bored with before the B's.
That's a very dad answer.
And that's so funny because
those are the front love.
Especially when those books came out. When those books were first introduced, I think they were used a lot. And that's where we get a lot of these very common names coming out, like where everyone has these names because we have these baby books where there's these names. And now, I mean, if you look in a baby book now, the names in there are crazy. There's so many different names. But we have that where people just randomly pick names. And I think maybe because my I can't think of words when I'm talking on these things. My experience is different because when we were picking a name or names for our daughter, we really wanted them to have significance. We wanted them to mean something. And I don't know that everyone does that. And not that they have to. Not that they have to at all. But it's interesting the differences between people, between cultures. There's some cultures where you just take the name of an ancestor or something like that. Or even I think the throne, they don't even have their own names. Don't they pick a name once they're...
I think, Allie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that they can choose a historical name to go by to be like king whatever or queen whatever.
I'm pretty sure they can.
And it's probably, I'm guessing it's probably pulled from one of their middle names, generally speaking, But yeah, I think they can just...
Yeah, because I think Queen Elizabeth, I think her name was Elizabeth.
That was one of her middle names, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they legit just changed her name. Anywho, man, who knew we could talk an hour and a half about names?
I know. There was a woman I used to work with when I had my corporate job, and her name was Levator. Her first name was Levator because she was born in the elevator hospital. So they were getting her up between floors, and she was born in the elevator. So her mom named her Levator. True story.
Why couldn't they just call her Ellie?
Or Otis. Otis is a very common brand of elevators. It's like the most common one.
Levator.
Levator.
She probably... Are you Darth Vader's daughter?
Yeah. Capital L, capital V. Levator.
I would change my name.
I would have too, but she was very happy with it.
Wow, Levator. Okay.
Not everything has to have meaning.
Angela says, my mom said if I had dark hair, my name would have been Ginger.
Oh.
I do not think I could have pulled that off.
You could be a ginger.
Ginger.
You have a ginger inside of you.
Yeah, everyone has a little ginger inside of them. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel like I heard at one point that my name was supposed to be Brittany Spring. Do I look like a Brittany Spring?
No.
No, not at all.
No.
And it's funny because when I was in high school, my arch nemesis in my friends group, his name was Brittany. I did not like that girl. She did not like me. But we were in the same friends group, so we had to deal with each other. Ugh, what a name. Anywho, let's move So speaking of, we keep talking about names. Have you ever thought about changing your name? And if you did, what would you change it to? So this is a funsy one.
Yeah. When I was little, I loved the actress Lisa Bonet. Like, I wanted to be Lisa Bonet so badly. It is not funny. Like, loved everything about her. Loved the Cosby Show, of course, but like, loved her. There were Lisas in my school, so Lisa was not a cool enough name. I wanted to be Denise, like her character, because Denise was so cool. So I tried to get my parents to call me Denise. My parents laughed in my face for that. They're like, no, it's not happening. Like, your name is Laura. Just be happy. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then I finally realized it wasn't going to fly. So I tried to get my parents to call the cat Denise instead of me. Like, no. Then I tried to get the dog's name to change to Denise. No. Like, when I got a hamster, my mom was like, you're not naming this hamster Denise. That's not happening. So if I was a kid, I would have legally changed my name to Denise, probably, because I thought Denise was the coolest, because Lisa Bonet was the coolest.
That's so funny.
I know. Now I have no idea, but when I was a kid, absolutely Denise. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I don't have the brain capacity to think about, like, thinking what my name would be. It was bad enough when I got married. I still have stuff that I haven't changed my name on. But I know when I was younger, obviously, I couldn't stand my name because all I could think of was like that I was named after Danielle Steele, and I hated that. The idea of being named after someone who wrote romance novels, like
the romance author.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I always wanted a name that I thought was like exotic, you know? So it was always like, I want to be Brianna or Gabriella or, like something that sounded cute. And then when I took Spanish in 7th grade, you had to pick a Spanish name.
Oh, yeah.
And do you know what name I picked? It was so stupid. I hated it the moment I had it. Sylvia.
Sylvia.
Why? That's not cool. I could have picked something more exotic, but no.
Yeah.
Sylvia.
I know. And she wanted our teacher the same thing. We had to pick our Spanish name, but she said if your name is in Spanish, that's your name. Like, it's just pronounced differently. So Laura is in Spanish, so I was just Laura. So it was Laura for like 6 years. Like, this is not fun for me. Yeah. No. Oh, I also wanted to change my name to be like, see, I watch a lot of TV, to be like Sam's on Who's the Boss, because I liked their name was Samantha, but you could shorten it and you couldn't tell if she was a boy or a girl. Loved it. Like, Laura, you can't shorten Laura at all. No. Lori, it's not shortened. It's just changing the vowel. Yeah. It's not. There's no difference. No.
Yeah, I do suppose I do like that. The one thing I wish I would have changed about my name right now, like Dani, is I wish I would have spelt it with an E, because I saw on some show where the girl's name was Dani and she kept an E as well. And I was like, dang it. That would have been so cool. It would just be Danie. Because my name is Danielle, Danielle.
Yeah.
I would just take the LLE off and it'd be Dani. But then I was like, people would be like, Dani.
Right.
Yeah, Dani. Yeah. So, but yeah. Because I feel like, because I have a common name and I just wish like it was more like one of a kind. So yeah, that's why I was always like, yeah, if I change my name, it's gonna be something really cool. But I don't look like a Brianna. I don't look like a Gabrielle or anything like that.
I'm gonna call you Sylvia now from now on.
Sylvia.
Yeah, Sylvia.
Yeah. Let's see what they said in the comments. So let's see. Here we go. So in Hong Kong, lots of people take English names and people pick some crazy names.
Oh my gosh.
Tangent, Nefertiti, Pickle. And I have met so many apples and kiwis. Oh my goodness. I wonder why they picked those for names. That's so funny.
It must just be how it sounds.
I would name myself Banana.
You should for banana bread, if nothing else.
You can call me Strawberry Banana. Gertrude, what is it?
Gertrudis.
Gertrudis? That's so funny. Oh. I think if not, everybody just don't care about me at all. People come to whatever.
Oh. I'm sure they really don't,
I
Allie.
really want to change your name. I think you have a great name.
Mm-hmm.
How did you pick that? Or you were assigned to it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like the way it sounded.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when I picked Sylvia, I think it was like, I felt rushed. So you're looking through the names and like people are like, I'm gonna be this, I'm gonna be this, I'm gonna be this. I
They
should
take all
have.
the good names you wanted to take.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should have picked Priscilla or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like Sylvia. I was like, dang it. Can I switch? No.
No.
Ah!
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, it was the only time I took that class. I didn't end up going to it the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Gertrudis?
Gertrudis.
Who knows? I don't speak Spanish. No hablo español. Oh my goodness. So, we talked a lot about names. Like, literally, I think every single question, other than the first question, was about names. So, let's switch it up a little bit and talk about this as an immigrant story. So, this how does this story compare to other immigrant stories that you've read? And I'm not sure if it's really, if we deem it accurate or not, but like, as we've read in our repertoire, do we feel like it seems more or less accurate than the others we've read? This one being from the late 60s into the early 2000s. We see a generation, essentially, of these first generation Americans, as well as their parents. So, you know, based on other immigrant stories you've read, how do you feel it compares?
I think it's like a lot of others. I mean, timeline wise, too. I mean, it seems very similar to a lot of stuff, not only in books, but in TV shows as well. You know, when someone's parents have come over in the 60s or 70s, it's a similar experience. They work in similar places, live on the East Coast primarily when they first come. So it seemed to take a lot of, like, especially Indians moving to America, immigration stories that I have read, seen, heard before. So it felt authentic, you know, to me, because it have those touchstones. And again, I don't know if that's all fiction or like a mix. Probably, I'm sure some real, some not, but it does mesh and gel, and I find it very, very believable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it felt very real, accurate to me. What did you think?
Yeah, I think in general, it felt similar to others that I've read as far as like the recipe was there. The one thing I felt like was missing, and I don't think it needed to be in the story because it doesn't need to be any story, but I felt like it was odd that it wasn't even mentioned at all. But there was like no racism at all when they are meeting other people. I felt the fact that they were so a part of so many things was really odd to me. Like when he was in high school, he like had all these friends. When he went to college, he had all these friends. He didn't have any trouble meeting girls. The sisters, same thing. The mother, even when she's like meeting all the other, and I know a lot of population then became same, even from the same city in India. But I just felt like everyone was so welcoming, and everyone should be. I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but it just, for the time frame, I was like, this is so odd that there's no mention of anything.
Oh,
Like
there was just one time. There was once near the end when he was still with Max at the lake house. They had his birthday party, and then like some neighbors came over and asked him where he was from, and he said Boston, and she said no, and then it kind of breezed on. And then she came back to it again, and then Max's mom said, "No, yeah, you're from Boston, aren't you? Right? Like, right? You know, that's really it. Yeah."
Because I just assume, even with his name, and people asked and then asked if it was an Indian name, but like nobody, I feel like there would have been at least one scene where he would have like come home from school hating his name because people made fun of him more because he's Indian than because his name, you know. And again, I'm not saying it has to be part of the story because this novel is not about that, but
Mhm.
it is a huge part of this time, these years.
And kids are jerks.
Even
Mhm.
now, you
Yeah,
know.
kids
So
are
I just
jerks.
thought it was weird that
I think
it
it's
didn't
kind of
have
good
it.
though too, because then it can just be more about the family and about
Oh,
his individual
absolutely.
journey, you know. But yeah, I
Hmm.
see what you mean. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just the authenticity
Yeah.
of the experience. I think I was expecting, because his name was so different,
Mm-hmm.
that was going to be a part of it, and it wasn't. And I'm happy it wasn't, but
Right.
I felt like it was weird. So when this question came up, I was like, well, I think it's weird that was never part of it, which I'm glad it wasn't, but yeah, I just thought that was weird.
Mm-hmm.
So Allie said the immigrant element was very standard. One of the places felt showed early work in
Yeah.
the history. It's realistic, competent, but not doing anything extra. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think overall that's how I felt. Like I was saying when we were doing our ratings, it's just it's
Yeah.
just a story. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not bad, but it's not
I know.
memorable either.
For a while, I kept waiting for something to happen,
Yeah.
like there'd be some kind of mystery we're trying to solve, even though I know it's not a mystery, but like there's something to pick at, and like try and unspool or whatever. And I would then
Yeah.
think maybe there's some like sort of shock accident twist, and like he's like his sister dies or something. I don't know. So I did read some reviews before I finished the book, and I was like, oh yeah, no, it's just a story about a family. Cool, got it. Like that totally helps, because I too was just sort of like, it's just a family living their life, going along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
standard,
Yeah.
competent, realistic,
Mm-hmm.
nothing flashy.
Yeah. When I was talking with my friend Beth Ann today too, I was like, I wonder why they decided to make this a movie.
Yeah. Dev Patel stars, right? Isn't he? Doesn't he play
Mm-hmm.
Gogo? It was, maybe this was his first kind of movie after Slumdog Millionaire.
Maybe.
I'm looking it up.
Any other topics that we want to cover regarding the characters, plot, or the story? Anything we missed?
I don't know. I keep thinking about food. Even though we're talking about names and I'm crying, I'm still thinking about food.
I'm thinking about a nap, but I won't get one.
Oh, he was not in The Namesake. I could have sworn he was. Let's see who does play Gogo. It's someone I know. Isn't this exciting, everybody? Watching someone Google something on their phone. Cal Penn. That's who I know.
Oh.
Cal Penn plays Gogo.
I only saw him go to White Castle. And then he was on House as well.
Yeah, I liked him on House.
Agreed, but there are definitely flashes of beautiful language found later. Mm-hmm. Anything else we wanted to discuss with this book?
I don't think so.
I know you had mentioned like what person this is told in. It's definitely told in third.
Yeah.
And it shifts between characters a little bit, but I don't feel like it's so much so that, like in some books you have it where like each chapter shifts the perspective. It really just like gives that person's perspective, but briefly.
Mm-hmm.
I think more or less it's the perspective or mood of the time. So whoever's perspective is most important for that time of the read, that's who is in the forefront. One aspect I didn't like in the story is I did not like his wife, that she ended up being unfaithful. I didn't like that. I really,
you don't like that in any book, by the way. That's what it's a thing for you.
Yeah.
You really don't like infidelity.
Yeah. But I feel like in this one it was just like they weren't in an arranged marriage.
Right.
They were introduced to one another, their families knew each other, but it wasn't an arranged marriage, so it was a love match, so to speak. So the fact that she ends up like getting with an old flame, I was just like, what the heck?
I know. He seemed so predatory and gross when he talked about him on the bus. I was like, this is
Yeah.
gross and disgusting. And you're going to cheat on this guy with
Yes.
this guy? Like,
Yes.
okay, mouse.
Yeah. It was so weird.
Yeah. I liked her
Yeah,
at first, and it
agreed.
seemed like an easy kind of comfortable, oh, this is kind of a nice match, like a nice tie together. Because, like you said, it's not arranged, but it's sort of arranged. And that's what it seems nice. But then before we
Yeah.
even got to her chapter, I was like, oh, something seems kind of off, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And you get to her chapter, and it's like, oh boy, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Didn't like it. And then I think Allie mentioned this too in the Boxer group. She just drops off then. Like she's
Yeah.
mentioned in a couple of sentences afterwards, like
Yep.
he saw her one more time, signed the divorce papers, and boom, that's it. Like, so you take the trouble to get a perspective of someone who's not a family member and doesn't really involve in this book at all, and then that's it. Like,
Yeah, and they
okay.
discuss it on a train ride, and then when he gets
Right.
off the train, like that's it.
Right.
It's like, but
Okay.
it reminds me too of the imagery before where the mom goes and she buys all those things for her family in India,
Yes.
and she accidentally leaves the bags, but then she's able to call Lost and Found and find them. And then when her dad passes away, she takes them back onto the train
Right.
and
Leaves
leaves
them on
them
purpose.
there. It's like the physicality of leaving objects on the train is exactly what he did with his emotions.
Yeah.
Is that when his wife like says, "Oh, by the way, oops, I've been having this affair," she gives him all the information, and like he just leaves it on the train and like leaves.
Yep.
So I thought that was an interesting piece as
that
well.
was.
So for the film, the book was written in the early 2000s. Yeah. There's real rash of immigrant stories in the past decade, so perhaps the kinds of stories are less common in film.
Yeah. The film was from 2006. It was released in 2006. This is from 2003.
The book is 2003.
The book is 2003, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's 20 years old. Oh yeah, we already said that. We were talking about that last time. We were like, oh my gosh, it's 20 years old. Yeah, I think you do find that too. Is when there's like a certain theme, and then there's like 10 movies of that same theme.
Right. Or like Twilight. Now there's a bajillion, there was a bajillion vampire books, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, anything else, everyone? I think that was a great discussion. I'm thoroughly.
We rambled really well today.
Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome. I get one good thought out at least.
You're done for a while then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of the next one, book for June is the Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, Jonathan Safran Foer. We will be doing productivity sprints on the 5th of June. That is a Sunday at 4:30 after our new product release. In the new product release, we will end the productivity sprints. We will announce what July's book is. There will not be a vote because July is my birthday month. So we will be reading my selection. And if you're watching this in replay and you got all the way to the end, you are a rock star. Please make sure you let us know that you were here in the comments. Let us know if you have any thing to add. And we'll be happy to see everyone again in the next one.
Yeah. See you in 2 weeks, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a good Memorial Day if you're here in the States.
Yes. Yes. Are you doing anything for that?
Yeah, at home in my pajamas, which is where I want to be all the time, always. So, How about you?
Yep. Pretty much.
Yep.
I don't think we're doing anything. Sometimes we just happen to like all of a sudden we're doing something, but I don't think that. I think this year we're really staying on the DL. So, yeah.
Yep, I'm hoping for a lot of reading and maybe some decluttering. Let's not take it too crazy here. Maybe some cleaning, you know, but mostly just take a nap when I feel like it, hang out, watch too much booktube and binges, and then go, oh my God, I can't watch anymore.
Yeah. I've been watching Veronica Mars.
Oh yeah.
So I'm into the second
good.
season. Like, I think I'm almost done with the second season.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's okay.
But
I
anywho,
started rewatching QI again, so I just picked a random season to start watching again, and I watched one, and I'm halfway through the second one. Because like it's just like any other sitcom or music video. You're like, I'll just
you
see
keep
who's
going.
on the show. I'll just see who like, oh, Phil Jupitus is on. I'm gonna watch this one. 20 minutes. Shoot. Okay, I'll just see who the next one is. Yeah.
Yep.
Did that for an hour and a half today.
Yeah. Well, and I like shows like Veronica Mars because there's like one main plot thing that is through the whole season,
Yes.
and then each episode has their own like plot thing.
Plus adding to the big overall mystery.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like you're
It's so
watching one
good.
episode and you're like, this is really cool. Like I like how they
Yeah.
did this. And then like at the very end of the episode, like they'll put one little nugget of thing for the
Right.
overarching plot, and you're like, oh my gosh, now I have to watch the next episode. And I love how they do. So I decide if I'm going to watch the episode based on the last time on Veronica Mars,
Mm-hmm.
because what they do is they put in they'll put in scenes that will correlate to what they're going to focus on in that episode.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So if it's like stuff that I'm like, I don't care, but if it's like, so in this season, there's this bus accident that happens. If there's anything that they mention about the bus, I'm like, I'm watching this episode.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anywho, okay. We all gotta go. Allie's gotta get to bed because it's almost midnight where she's at. So
yeah,
we gotta let everyone go. Enjoy your dinners, breakfast, lunch, whatever you're gonna eat. I have to go figure out what we're having for dinner. But until next time, y'all, happy reading. Yeah.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.